Hi folks, welcome to the first long-term support webinar of the year. My name is Neil McGough. I'm going to be bringing you through our latest recent major release, 2019.1.LTS, and the features that we've brought out alongside that. Just as a brief introduction for those of you I haven't met before, I haven't dealt with, my name is Neil McGough. I'm Director of Technical Business Development and Support with Learnosity, based in New York, and I oversee the technical business development and support teams. So a lot of the support or implementation advice or solution consultancy that you receive on a day-to-day basis through our support channels or along with our account managers, it comes through my team. Just some quick housekeeping notes to begin. On joining this call, you're automatically put on mute. Time has been allocated for questions at the end of the webinar. Questions can be asked in the GoToWebinar control panel. You'll see the image on the right-hand side displays where that is. For any unanswered follow-up questions, if you're an existing Learnosity client, please log a ticket via help.learnosity.com. Help being our combined support and knowledge base site, kind of one-stop shop for all your needs there. And this webinar is being recorded, so the recording will be emailed to all registrants. So we're going to go through our long-term support release across a number of different verticals. So across our assessment stack, our authoring, and our reporting and analytics piece. Just briefly, for those of you who may not be aware of what our long-term support releases are and how they work, Learnosity releases long-term support releases 3 times a year. The aim is that they are stable, very much production-focused releases with feature-complete features rolled out into them. Prior to kind of 18 months ago, 12 to 18 months ago, Learnosity used to release versions that could be tied to every 3 weeks, and this is an aim to kind of to make it a bit easier for you to know what versions of Learnosity to use when features are really live and ready for prime time versus there and available for development and for kind of future scoping out, but not yet ready for live use. Across our assessment stack, just some of the quick highlights, covering off support for right to left languages, student resource panels, improvements to archiving items, additional partial scoring functionality, and system of inequalities in math. Within our authoring release, we'll go through in more detail on options around making items and activity titles mandatory, automatic tagging of items and activities, the ability to upload files to questions and features, status indicators on editing items for activity templates. Sorry, apologies, folks. I just been notified I didn't have my screen shared. So just to go back through that, in terms of housekeeping, here is where you can go to be able to ask any questions that you may have. And as noted, we're going through our authoring releases, and in terms of things like changeable font size, custom metadata control and positioning, updated scoring validation for closed question types, and improvements in user management and user setup for the Learnosity Author. Alongside that, we'll also be running through some updates on our analytics piece, including improvements in the data API for duplicating and creating new content and ensuring that the audit trail and author attribution is correct. Some updated self-service item bank information through console, and as well as some performance enhancements we've worked on through live monitoring. So with no further ado, we'll get started in with our assessment stack to begin with. The first piece we're really happy to announce is support for right to left languages within Learnosity assessment. This has kind of been something that a lot of you have asked about over the years. It's obviously been a big piece to get working on to properly support right to left throughout the assessment product. Right now, we've brought that support and rolled it out to a couple of key areas. So our whole assessment player is right to left capable. Our multiple choice questions, our essay questions, and specifically the image highlight question type. We view these as kind of, as the basic building blocks for people getting started with this content, and we will be bringing further bidirectional language support to cover off testing for other RTL languages and more question types as planned. So right now, those question types in the assessment player are covered, and it's specifically tested through Arabic, though obviously other right-to-left languages like Urdu or Hebrew or that kind of thing will work reasonably well here, but haven't been tested to quite the same extent. I know this is one that's been asked about a bunch of times, so for those of you on the call who've inquired about this before, please reach out to us via help.learnosity.com, and we'll point you in the right direction for support and getting started with that. Next, introducing the new resource panel. This again is one of those requests that's come in quite often, so we're really happy to finally get this out. Essentially, this is the ability to add a resources button to the assessment player that, when clicked, will display a pre-authored item. The common things that we see within this are glossary tools or periodic tables or kind of things of that vein. And some of the stuff that you see when we go through the authoring part is kind of driven off this as well. So you can build an item here that has just an image within it. It could have text and HTML as you may want. It could have links out to external resources, or as we get into the authoring side, it can have files like uploaded PDFs, Word files, Excel, other elements like that may be useful as you build this out. Again, for those of you interested, please just reach out to us and we'll get you started with the right documentation. Authoring a system of inequalities in math. For those of you with a strong math focus, this is one that's come up quite often. And was previously quite difficult to create and lay out. So now we've added the correct notation for system of inequalities and a really easy way to do this via our math keypad. I'll just pop into that now to show you quickly. So if I'm within any question here, and I am going to go and add some math. Once I'm within this math section, down at the end of our all symbols section, we have our system inequalities piece here. So I can then, for instance, say 5x plus 3 is greater than y, and y minus 2x greater than 4. Previously, this would have been quite difficult to lay out. You'd have had to use the source piece within LaTeX, and it would have been more difficult for day-to-day editing. So it's a simple but powerful improvement that we've brought into our math editor for that functionality. Improvements to archiving. This is a slight change to how we handle archived items when the test is being delivered to a student. So previously, if you had an activity that was being delivered to a student and you had 10 items in that activity and one of them had been switched to archived, we would throw an error when you tried to initialize that activity or resume that activity, because from our side it was considered not available. Some of the feedback we've gotten over the years kind of pointed towards what people really wanted to do with archived was limit the ability for authors to find or add that activity or add that item to a new activity, but they still would want a student to be able to finish the test they started, for instance, without that affecting it. So as of 2019.1.LTS, any archived items that are already in an activity will still continue to work, will still render. However, when building an activity with the activity builder, they won't be included in the list of available items for authoring. So it provides a very easy way to tidy up behind the scenes, but without breaking existing content. Partial match scoring. Again, this is one that we've heard a few requests for over the years. Expanding our partial match scoring support to a wider range of question types. In this case, 2 specific ones: number line and hotspot. So now within both those, prior to now, within both those question types, you'd have only been able to do exact match scoring. Now you can include partial match scoring and provide a bit more nuance in terms of how you ask and score those questions. And now we'll move on to some of our authoring releases and the areas of improvement we've brought in there. The first one is the ability to switch on mandatory titles. So titles are a feature that we brought in about a year or a little bit longer ago to kind of solve the problem of not displaying unique references to end users, particularly when it comes to teacher authors, being able to hide that away, make that immutable, but allow them an easy way to change title without breaking anything. We've now made it optional that you can make those titles mandatory, and the advantage there then is that you can ensure somebody has to enter a title before they leave, and means then that before they leave editing or save the item, and that then means that as you look at things like the item list view, it's much more coherent. The information necessary for a good user experience is in there as well. So you can avoid a case where you have thousands of items with no title or that kind of thing by just making that mandatory in those cases. Tagging items and activities automatically. This is a really easy way to configure the Author API that when somebody creates a new item or activity, it'll have certain default tags applied against it. So when you're initializing the Author API in either of those views, you can specify specifically which tags you want to have applied automatically. Previously, you would have had to go and specifically call public methods using set tags to do these at specific points in the workflow. In this case, where, for instance, you're always initializing this the item editor in such a way that you always want to tag it as subject math because that creator can only make math content, it means that you can configure the API to do that automatically for you. Uploading files to items. This is a really great feature. Actually, it kind of rounds out a number of different surface areas in Learnosity. So basically now you can upload files into items for students to use, so that there'll be links available within that item. When they click it, it'll download the file to their desktop, and they'll be able to use it either as supporting material or specifically in the case of file upload, as scaffolding for their response. That was kind of one of the surface areas we know we had a gap in with file upload, was that students could upload things, but we didn't have a mechanism for a teacher to provide a scaffolded Excel sheet or something similar. So this will work across a wide range of file types: PDFs, docs, Excel sheets, images, XML, whatever may be needed there. It's really easy to use. I'll just bring you through how to do this. So if I go in again to author a new item, within the editor, I now have a new button here, which is just this add resource button. So within this add resource button, I can click to go and add a file, drop it in, and I can also choose how that link is going to be displayed as well. So I can choose the display name for it, and I can also set a host URL if needed. Creating new users with ease. This is an improvement to the Learnosity console we worked on over the last couple of sprints as a bit of feedback from people having some issues with our prior user creation mechanism. And with the way the flow was presented, quite often people were creating new users without associating an item bank. So then they weren't able to log into author.learnosity.com. We've now worked to make this a lot easier. And it's a much more of a driven experience. So when you go in to create a new user, you're presented with your add new user details field. So let's say I'm going to create one for Neil McGough. Let's say Neil McGough 2. And I'm requested as to which sites I want them to be able to access. And then following on from that, which organizations I want, or which roles I want to set up within that as well. So it's a much more driven, much more coherent experience, much less likely for people to go wrong when they're creating new users within this, and just kind of just smooths out some of those rougher points with user creation that were there. One of the other things we've worked on here is around reducing the risk, or better informing the author when some of their changes may have an impact on as to what happens when they change an item. So the major one here is that we've added a indicator when a user is editing an item that exists inside a given activity. You can turn this on or off by configuration, and there's a number of different routes there. But the aim there is to ensure the user is fully informed as to the impact of what they may do, and as a result, ensure that accidental changes to content that's in use or in flight right now is reduced or lowered. Custom metadata control is a tweak to our layouts structure. So custom metadata is one of those areas in the authoring experience where, from a platform point of view, you can configure custom metadata fields that are going to be displayed to your end authors. So the most common ones there are things around, distractor rationale or hints or additional sample answers or any metadata you may want to surface to a teacher, instructor, or student at any point, either during an assessment or in the kind of reporting phase afterwards. Within our layouts previously, you didn't have a huge amount of control as to where this was positioned. It would always be down at the very bottom in a custom metadata section. We know in some cases where people have been setting metadata that's related to other elements that already exist, they found this frustrating because they can't move it to where an author might logically look for it. So what we've looked to do there is provide the freedom for you to move it anywhere you may want within that layout. You can position it wherever it makes sense and kind of reduce that authoring friction. Another long asked for one here as well is customizable text size within the rich text editor. So this means authors have the ability to change font sizes in the rich text editor. Makes it easier for them to call out or kind of make it clear that certain parts are very important. Also is fully customizable as well. So we have default font sizes within this, but in cases where you may want different default font sizes or different labels, so you may want to change this to small, medium, large, extra large, or similar, that flexibility is there within the Author API and question editor as well. So you'll see this when we go into a question like this. I can increase the point size on student. I can make this very, very large. I can make other parts very small. And in terms of being able to customize this, it's simply a case of just changing the initialization attributes that you're passing into us when you're loading the Author API on page. Match all possible responses is an improvement into our closed question types. Again, it's one we've heard a few times, just in terms of reducing friction for setting up complicated closed questions, correct scoring for those kind of situations, and just lowering that barrier for entry. So content authors can now quickly set up additional scoring validation for closed question types. That means that we will score across both the core valid answer and the alternate responses within it as well. So if I look at an example here, I'm going to create a close text question. I'm going to clear this out and make it pretty simple. We're going to say that there are two responses. I'm going to say that one of the correct answers is cat and hat, and there are going to be other answers that we also would accept in this, such as fish and bowl. Now, if I wanted to set this up previously so that I would accept both the answer cat in the first box and bowl in the second response box, I'd have to go and create multiple alternate responses across all of those, which even with a 2 response box setup and 4 possible options would mean 4 alternate responses. So as this got bigger or more complicated, the number of alternate responses you'd need to author got very, very large. Instead, what we've added now is this match all possible responses box here. So if I tick this, what this means is that I will now be able to give, for instance, cat as the first answer and bowl as the second answer, and still be able to get full marks as it's scoring across all of the possible responses there. In this case, it will take the score from the primary correct answer and use that across all the rest of them. So For authoring complex closed questions with multiple potential correct answers and combinations of correct answers, we think this should lower a lot of friction for authoring teams in creating that type of content. We'll move on now to our analytics releases and dive into some of the improvements we've made in the product there as well. First up, one of the first changes is an improvement to the data API in terms of our duplicate calls. So previously, when you use duplicate against either an activity or an item, the item or activity would be duplicated and we create new copies of that, but we didn't correctly attribute that duplication to an author. So now one of the things you can do is you can pass in information to us in that request to tell us which author to attribute to, so that as you look at things like the audit trail in the author site, that will stack up correctly and make sense, and and include who actually took that duplicate action. The new item bank data chart. This is a really great improvement in Learnosity Console. This is part of our drive to make Learnosity Console part of a way to make your data easier and more accessible to you. Make it very much self-service, on demand, tailorable, and answer those questions that you need answering. That we've always provided the ability to get that information, but would have taken a level of effort on your side to churn through the raw data to get out the insights you want. This chart is kind of designed around making that available at a click of the button. It enables users to check the number of question and feature types authored, as well as total items per item bank. Let's take a look at this just quickly now. So within our kind of behind the scenes Learnosity item banks, you can see we've across a bunch of different item banks. We have 29 in total. We've created a wide range of items in each, ranging from 350 in one of our QA environments right down. And we can see a great breakdown of questions and features authored, either over a specific time period. So for instance, if you're going through an authoring drive at a specific time, you can look at your content that's been created during that period. You can start to look at things like, well, are my authors starting to fall back very specifically on certain question types that they're comfortable with, but not really leveraging the more appropriate ones for that type of thing. You can drill it down to any of the specific question types that you may want, and you can filter it down to specific item banks as well within that. Very easily, we're looking at these, you can see breakdowns per item bank of where each of these are stored. And you see a bit more of a textual information in terms of being able to see that our most common question type is actually the close association question type, followed by match list. If we look at it from the other side, we can see that we're not using chemistry essay a huge amount across our item banks, or kind of a deprecated counter question type as well. So there's really great ways to be able to dig in and get a bit more information out of your item bank and a bit more information to feed your authoring teams with as well. One other key thing I'd note, just anytime I'm in console, we obviously have this feedback box down the bottom here. We always want to hear your feedback on how you find the product, how you find console specifically, how you find any of these new charts that we're developing, especially as we're bringing them out with the idea to solve certain questions. So if they're not solving that question for you, or if there's something small that may make it solve it better for your use cases, we're always eager to hear. And then the final one within analytics is some enhancements to our live monitoring and live progress report. This is a report that a lot of you are using already, in some cases for just simple teacher progress monitoring, in other cases for teacher control or focus tracking or any of that kind of thing. We did over time realize that there were certain areas where end users were starting to see some level of lag between student taking an action and it being surfaced to the teacher. So we during the last LTS, we put a large focus on ensuring that we identified those areas and put development resources towards enhancing that and making it smoother, more responsive, and generally making that a much better experience for everybody involved. For any of you who don't know this report type and this kind of experience, it's the live progress tracking control in our demo site. And in this case, this report on the left-hand side is our teacher report, and these are 3 students taking tests. So as your students in the classroom go through and start taking tests and start their assessment, triggers are sent over to the teacher as to where they are within the assessment, whether they're focused on it, what item they're currently on, you know, and the performance and speed on this has been greatly improved over the last long-term support release. So we're really happy with where it is, and we hope those of you who are using it are really happy with the performance improvements that are within that. So that concludes a high-level look at our latest 2019.1.LTS long-term support release. It's been the culmination of 3 to 4 months of really great work across our development, design, and product teams. We're really proud of where it's going, and we're really looking forward to what we have to show you in 2019.2.LTS, which will be released towards the end of June, around that kind of time frame as well. My question is, are there any questions or anything within that that come in from the crowd? So I'll just kind of have a quick check. So I have a question here on automatic tagging. The automatic tagging is a really valuable option. Did I hear correctly that can be configured for different user groups, such that a user group is only able to access a certain group of tags, can have a certain set of tags applied to the item they create? Yes, correct. So in it's an author API initialization option. So the permission groups and user groups that exist within the author site are all driven off those configuration options. So you can use those 2 features together, so that a person who exists within a science teacher or science content creator user group may have a specific science tag applied every time, so they can that's already there and it doesn't have to be done manually by the author. If you have any questions on that, please do reach out to us. We're happy to walk through it. I have one as well, not a question, but feedback. I've used the updated user management feature extensively in the last few days, and it is a significant improvement. Thanks. That is great to hear, and that's really what we were aiming for with it. We know it had been a point. We got various support requests in from people who had accounts set up who didn't have item banks associated with them, and we know there was a bit of frustration in that process. So we're really glad that it's resolving that. Okay. That looks like all our questions. So thank you very much all for dialing into the webinar. As we mentioned at the start of this, the recording will be emailed out to all registrants. It'll also be made available on our sites as well. If there's anything that you have questions on, please feel free to follow up either through our support team, through help.learnosity.com, or with any larger holistic questions or that kind of thing through your account manager with Learnosity. Thank you very much, folks, and have a good day.